arguments of resettlement, certainly in the past, have suggested that Diego Garcia is necessary for military use and you can have a settled population there. What would you say to that?
Well, Diego Garcia is a very strategic location. It was a strategic location in the Cold War when it was originally used as a US air base, and certainly with instability in the Middle East, it's perhaps even more important now given its proximity to that region of the world. But people live next to air bases all around the world. People live next to US air bases in this country, obviously in the United States, where there are settled communities around. So it should be no different that people could live on the outskirts of a perimeter fence of a US airbase on Diego Garcia any more than they would on an airbase in, say, Lincolnshire in this country.
So one of the arguments in the past has been that the environment of the Chagos Islands is too valuable to risk having human habitation within it. What would you say to that?
Well, certainly the Chagos Island environment is virtually pristine, and compared with many other parts in the Indian Ocean, because it's so remote, it is very important ecologically, and that's why the government, the previous administration, introduced the Marine Protected Area, which was quite controversial because it was seen that that would be something that would prevent resettlement. But the sort of numbers we're talking about in terms of Chagos Island resettlement would have minimal impact on the environment. The Marine Protected Area actually doesn't start until 3 miles offshore. So subsistence fishing to support returned Chagos Islanders wouldn't have a detrimental environmental impact. Let's not forget there is a big airbase on Diego Garcia, so there's already some environmental impact. I think Chagossians living on their homeland would be absolutely minimal impact, and I see no conflict between protecting the unique ecology of the Chagos Islands and the sea around them with what would be almost certainly quite a modest number of Chagos Islanders living on the islands. I see no conflict at all.
One of the reasons resettlement has been opposed again in the past has been on the grounds of excessive costs to the British taxpayer. I believe the cost estimates in the latest report start at around 60 million over 3 years. What would you say to this idea that that's too much?
Well, I think first of all there is a moral and ethical principle here that people should be allowed to return to their homeland that they were forcibly removed from. And what price do we put on human rights and on democratic due process? £60 million is obviously a lot of money, but actually if you view it in the context of the overall international aid budget that this country spends, which is 0.75% of GDP, it's actually a relatively modest sum. And indeed other overseas territories are receiving significant investment. Ascension Island in the Atlantic Ocean is having a new landing strip built there at I think tens of millions of pounds in terms of cost. I think there are ways that funding can be found without there being an additional burden on the UK taxpayer. And I'd also add that the US in the next couple of years is looking to renew its lease for Diego Garcia for another extended period. They almost certainly will want to renew their air-based lease because of the importance of it strategically to the Middle East. And so I think there's a case to go to Washington as well and say that you've benefited from Diego Garcia, you should help with some of the costs of the islanders being able to return. Domain names for websites, the British Indian Ocean Territory has its own domain name. That could be an industry that obviously would be very environmentally low impact, but could bring in a source of income. And of course the servicing of the airbase itself. At the moment a lot of Philippine workers actually do a lot of the servicing of the airbase. No reason why Chagos Islanders couldn't fill a lot of those roles as well. So I don't think what we want to see is the Chagos Islands suddenly become the new Maldives, I think that would be detrimental to this unique environment, but there are all sorts of other economic activities that can be carried out with minimal impact.